Money FM 89.3, the best of the afternoon update.
Welcome to Good Tech, our weekly look at how technology is making a difference in the real world. Each week we spotlight the people and projects using innovation to create meaningful social impact. Now, ever wanted to give back but didn't know where to start? In Singapore's fast-paced society, many of us feel that pull to do more, to do good, but too often it's hard to know where to begin. Our guest today is helping make that leap a little easier by turning good ideas into practical tech tools that help people and communities. Xin Yi is a part of Better.sg, a community of technologists, designers, and change makers building digital tools that serve the public good. As their projects and operations manager, she brings ideas to life, whether it's inclusive language guides or empathy simulators, all with the aim of making civic tech more human and more accessible. Let's find out more. Xin Yi, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Amy, for the warm welcome.
Now, I did a little bit of introduction earlier, but what exactly is Better.sg and how is it different from your typical civic tech or volunteer organization?
Sure. So Better.sg was founded as a ground-up initiative by four of our founders. They had this idea that they want to encourage the use of technology in aid of progressing social causes. So at about 2,600 volunteers currently, we are Singapore's largest tech-for-good charity. And 5 years in, we have all these volunteers who come to us with projects and ideas, contributing beyond their day jobs to build meaningful solutions.
Okay. And what drew you personally to this space? Was there a moment or experience that made you want to use tech as a tool for impact?
That's a great question, Amy. I tell people that I am a techie by necessity.
Okay.
I think a lot of people have this idea of people who are tech professionals in the tech space that we are only software developers, software engineers, people who know how to code. And so I joined this space as, I guess, a different voice because I want to show folks that tech is not just this, as Singaporeans like to say, cheap and difficult thing to use. It's something that we use every day. In fact,
that's right.
Right now, everyone has a smartphone, and there's so many things you can do with it, from translating, so they can speak to friends from foreign countries, to using even QR codes. So that's kind of like what drew me into that space and to this work with Better.sg.
Okay, when a community issue comes up, how do you usually assess whether it's a challenge that can be tackled with tech? What are the key things you look for?
That's a great question. I feel like when we look at projects, the first thing has to be a tech solution. So we have folks, for example, who want to tackle the issue of advancing financial literacy amongst the migrant workers community. And while that's a social challenge we identify with and want to help with, the solution that the volunteers came up at that point of time was a series of live training / workshops. And so we worked with them to discuss whether it's possible to come up with, say, an app or even a chatbot on WhatsApp or the common messaging app that they use where they can learn more about financial literacy. So we don't really have hard and fast rules as to what constitutes a tech-for-good project at Better.sg. But we do try our best to help volunteers who are passionate about their cause to serve their beneficiaries.
Okay. Now, I'm going to dig a little bit deeper. Take us behind the scenes. How does an idea go from, let's say, a hackathon concept to a full product at Better.sg?
Yeah, so it depends whether it's coming from a volunteer or a social impact organization. So for volunteer-run projects, which are ideas that we've been talking about, where volunteers come and be like, hey, I have this tech solution, I want to build it out. Then we have a pitch and demo night twice a year. And folks can come in, they pitch their ideas, and of course, before that night, we would talk to them. I'm actually in this process right now with a pitch and demo night, 3rd of July, where I speak with them. Yeah, and so they send me the pitch deck. I talk to them about their pitch. Of course, it has to be non-profit in nature, talk about that solution before they actually present. And then on that day itself, some of them already have teams, and they're looking for partners or looking for government agencies who can help them bring their ideas to the next level. But there are also a lot of volunteers who come and be like, here's my idea. I need developers. I need UX designers. Anyone who wants to join the team. And then they go from there, develop what we call an MVP, a minimum viable product. And then they get feedback about that minimum viable product, create version 1, 2, and then we will facilitate partnerships for them with the appropriate folks in the space.
Oh, sounds wonderful. Now, could you share an example of a project that you're especially proud of and what kind of impact it's had?
Yeah, so we had this, well, I actually have two, but one of them, talking about the migrant workers community, it's called Call Home SG. So during the pandemic, a lot of migrant workers' families lack stable internet connections at home and don't have access to Wi-Fi. Some couldn't afford the data plans that come with calls like WhatsApp or Viber. So with landline being the only option, our volunteers came up with a solution to make international calls cheaper. So by working with folks like Twilio.org, the social impact arm of Twilio, we provided a discounted rate that led to an overall 40 to 55% decrease in calling costs. So we also reached out to nonprofits like Transient Workers Council to help those in the most vulnerable migrant workers in Singapore call home. And ever since their launch during the pandemic, they have had thousands of calls made through this project. And this project also won the Telecommunications Award from the Singapore Business Review, which as a nonprofit we're very proud of.
Wow, amazing. And what's the hardest part of building tech tools from where you stand? Is it the design process or getting people to use it or sustaining the project in the long run?
I would have to be honest with this one, given that many of these are volunteer projects, keeping the momentum of people contributing their fair share to the project has been a challenge that I have received from many of the project leaders. Because the project leaders tend to be volunteers themselves. They're contributing their time and effort beyond their day jobs, which oftentimes can already be taxing on its own. Having some momentum to carry the team forward has often been both a challenge and also the most rewarding part of the volunteer project leaders. And then when they have minimum viable product, getting testers to validate their product and to make sure that things are going well, especially for those that are AI-based, to make sure that there's no bias in data and responses. That's another challenge as well.
Wow, it's really challenging. Hats off to you for taking this sort of volunteer work on. I'm really, really in awe, actually. One of the things Better.sg is known for is its emphasis on co-creation. How do you make sure the communities impacted by these tools are involved in shaping them?
Yeah, we have been very, very lucky, really, to have volunteers who are so driven in taking the lead. So when it comes to identifying social challenges, communities that we want to leave an impact on, we let the volunteers tell us. At Better.sg, we are agnostic to the cause and the solution, so long as it's not at the expense of another marginalized community, right? So we would help any and everyone who has an idea to make them into reality. In fact, one of the testimonials, I would say, about how driven our volunteers and passionate they are is we have a chatbot in production currently called Are You OK? And it's a chatbot that helps peers, even like you and I, when we have friends, right, who send us a barrage of texts and be like, I am so stressed, like this thing happened, how do we respond, right? And having this chatbot to help us help our friends. And this idea, Nini, was actually formed by the founders on a stairwell. They met at a Better.sg event, like a social mixer of sorts, and they kind of vibed together and talked about mental health and how they wanted to create a tech solution around it. And so they came to us with the idea of Are You OK? And we say, okay. And so I think they're in currently version 1 or even 2 of the chatbot. And so we're very proud of that idea. But yeah, an example of how our volunteers take a conversation and create something that benefits Singaporean society.
Sounds like you're doing a lot of many different and interesting things. Was there ever a project where you had to stop or change direction because something didn't sit right, perhaps ethically?
It's a great question. Let me think. Not ethically, but more of in terms of the volunteer project leads direction, where, as an example, they wanted to create a tech solution around mental health for youth in Singapore. And then they pivoted into realizing that in the nonprofit space, when it comes to like supporting mental health, grant writing can be difficult. So they kind of pivoted into creating a tech solution around helping grant writers write easier. So we do have pivots here and there, but ethically so far, I am glad to say we have not run into such issues.
Okay, that's great. And you're also collaborating with government agencies, nonprofits, and private players. What does effective collaboration look like in this space?
So one of the partnerships I can kind of use elaborate is that, for example, we are working with Cognizant and MCCY to create a series of AI workshops. So beyond supporting volunteers who have ideas, we also help them to upskill themselves, as well as helping social impact organizations who want to digitize their business processes. So we do work with partners to create workshops, events, even if they have challenge statements around, they have challenge statements that they are trying to find solutions around. We will always facilitate that partnership between our volunteers and these industry players.
Okay. And from your perspective, what role can such tech play in Singapore's evolution as a smart nation?
That's a big question. I feel like tech is a double-edged sword. When we, like this year, AI seems to be the big thing. People are talking about how, oh my gosh, like AI can replace a lot of business processes. AI can replace humans and their jobs. And also AI is biased. As I would say, a convert in progress with AI myself, I can see the benefits of having a search engine, for example, that understands how I'm asking a question. I think anyone who use computers have faced that challenge of going to Google or Bing or Yahoo, typing in a search and not quite finding what you want. I find that less of an issue when I use AI, just to give you an example. I've also seen conversations around AI in language, and I imagine that can, in a multicultural, multi-generational society like Singapore, where that AI in language can be a game changer. Like grandchildren who don't speak Hokkien or Cantonese or even Tamil, Malay, they don't speak that well, they can use AI to kind of understand their grandparents and have conversations, and that's invaluable.
That's right.
So like, whether it's in business or as a society, tech can play a role of being a facilitator if we know how to use it.
Yes, and I think civic tech can actually help make sure that as we become more digital, we also become more inclusive, right? Bringing everyday people together into the innovation process. So, we're not just digital, but we're also a kind and compassionate nation.
Exactly. I mean, to give an example, if I can. So we have had another project called To Be You. And talking about inclusive society, it's a game about empathy. It's a game where you step into the shoes of people who are from a different background, like race or socioeconomic class. And we actually had President Halimah Yacob comment on that game, saying that through this platform, the team hopes to build empathy and promote mutual understanding between people of different races and religions. The game is no longer under Better.sg. In fact, we've handed it over to One People SG, another non-profit that's focusing on cross-cultural education.
Wow.
So to your point, Mimi, tech can have a role to play in education and in creating a more compassionate and kind society.
Okay. Xin Yi, are there any areas where you think tech still isn't doing enough to help? What are some of the underserved issues Better.sg wants to tackle?
Oh, good question. I would speak on behalf of myself instead of my organization,
Okay.
because it's like a question that has a big responsibility. For me, I want to see more tech around financial literacy, frankly. Things that are not taught in schools, like financial literacy, empathy, and even emotions. How do you process emotions? I was talking to someone in the learning and development space who is working on nurturing a feedback culture in Singapore businesses. And I talked to them about how it would be hard to facilitate feedback if we constantly feel like we're being attacked, or if we don't know how to manage our emotions when we are given the feedback. And so I want to see tech more around that, to your previous point about kind, compassionate society. I think it goes a long way to educate folks about how to feel, about how to manage your money. I'm a millennial, and I have read so many articles about how folks don't know about credit card debt. People think that they can swipe up their limit and nothing will happen. We're coming into this stage in Singapore where we are progressing, so-called a first world society country, but some of our population are still lacking in that knowledge of how to make use of the resources and the prosperity that we now enjoy.
All right. We've run out of time, Xin Yi, but thank you for your time and for reminding us that tech for good doesn't always have to mean ambitious, headline-grabbing breakthroughs. Sometimes it's just about building something small and building it right. Thank you, Xin Yi.
Thank you for having me, Lily.
And I suppose if our listeners want to get involved, they can just head to Better.sg.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.